Okay, this is the Bieva Baby Cook, and I've got it loaded with roasted red pepper and goat cheese. I did not use it to cook the red pepper. I cooked it in the oven. In fact, a lot of the times I won't use it to cook because I like to cook a bigger batch, but it's nice for smaller batches, especially smaller fruits. But what you do to cook is turn it to the left and you fill the little reservoir with water, and it just steams right in there in the basket, and then you remove the basket, dump the food in, and then you can process it. So I'm at the food processing part. So all you do to, puree the veggies, and it does provide a pretty coarse chop. It's not super smooth. So if you're just starting your baby on food, might not be the best option. A blender might be better for that because you can get it really, really smooth. But all you do is turn the dial. It won't stay pureeing. You have to hold it in order for it to work. I couldn't walk away from it. But it does go pretty quick. Alright, so that's about good. Like I said, this is roasted red peppers and goat cheese. What I'm also going to show you are my favorite tools. These are the Perfect Cube ice cube trays, and they're silicones. You can see they're real bendy. You can pop the veggies and fruits right out pretty easily, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But there are some tricks to loading them and filling them well that I have learned along the way. So this one I've got almost full, but we'll start with the front one. The tricky part is making sure that each cube is filled completely with food. That's the one thing. I'm actually just gonna fill that up. That's the one thing I've run into, is making a batch of these and then going to pop them out after they've frozen and finding that there are air bubbles in the middle. So that's the only thing that you want to try and avoid, because each of these is exactly 1 ounce of food, which makes it really easy for you to measure out how much your baby's getting. But my little tricks for filling are using this spatula, which is just from Williams-Sonoma. You can tell it's very well loved because it's discolored and very used looking at this point. But it's the perfect size for just running along the edges, because you really want to make sure that these are visible so your ice cubes pop out, or your little cubes of food pop out really easily. Then what I'll do once I've got it filled is just pick it up and drop it a little bit just to make sure all the air's out and see if it settles. And that one looks like it's settling pretty darn well. The last thing I'm going to do before I put it in the freezer is take a paper towel, and I just run the paper towel, or you can do this with a rag if you're super green, and you run it all the way along the edges, and you make sure that the tray is pretty well cleaned before you put it in the freezer. And that's it, in the freezer, ready to go. Alright, next thing up is what you do once they're frozen. These were sweet potatoes that I made last night. I'll just show you how easy it is to pop them out. All I do is just work it back and forth, and you can see that they're coming out, and I just pop them right onto the counter. It's really, I know it's clean. So pop them out onto the counter, and I'll spare you all of them popping out. But the way that I work my system is I've got large Ziploc bags that I have labeled with the vegetable or fruit and the date, because these will keep for 3 months, and I'll go through them in 3 months, no problem. But what I do is I put all of the cubes in the bag, and they, end up lying perfectly square and perfectly flat. And then I'll show you outside in my freezer, I've got cubes out there, and then I just stack all of the bags, one by one, so I can just flip through for each meal and pick whatever I want to use. But they stand up by themselves and they stack beautifully, which is one of the reasons why I love the silicone Perfect Cube trays. The other thing is, I tried using the regular plastic ones that I had just had on hand, and I couldn't pop the vegetables out when I tried a test batch before I purchased these. And I'll put a link on the blog to these, but you can buy these. I think I found them on Amazon. And then I'm lucky enough to have a Williams-Sonoma outlet close to my home, and so I picked up a couple extra. I have 6 total because I tend to cook in large batches. That way I only have to cook once or twice a month. I don't even think I cook twice a month. I would say once a month, once every 2 months I cook baby food, and I just do it for a whole day and enlist any help that I have with visitors who are willing to cook, mostly my mother. But that's all of the cubes, and I'll just pop them in here so you can see what I'm talking about as far as how I store them. I've got an extra freezer outside that I use for baby food and that I had intended to use for breast milk. And that catches just a little bit of overflow from my main freezer in the house, but luckily it's right next to my kitchen, so I just hop out there and take her food, and then I bring it in to microwave it. So once it's stacked, I have it like that, and so therefore if you do have extra space in the bottom and you want to have a back supply, which I always have, you could just stack the bags right on top of each other and you don't lose any wasted space in the freezer. So that's the storage. So I thought it would be a good idea to show you my freezer system just so you had an actual viewpoint of what it looked like from when I go and grab food. So what I typically do as soon as my daughter is in her high chair and eating some finger foods is I come out to the freezer, which is just right around the corner from my kitchen, and go through all of my bags. And as you can see, I have a very low supply right now, just because I think we're at the tail end of our homemade baby food because she's eating so many solid foods. So I've got everything lined up here, stacked flat. Usually I have them just grouped into fruits versus vegetables. If I make something small or I have just a few things left over, I'll put them in the quart bags over on this side. But these are just the hanging file bins, and they can come and pop right out of the freezer, so you have easy access to any of the food that you want to store underneath. But that's it. It's super easy. This allows for very efficient storage. I've got probably 10 different kinds of foods right here, and there's more underneath for my back stock. You can also stack some sideways, and again you have some of the little things, and I always have my ice packs for when I'm out on the go, ready to go into my little freezer cooler. So I think that's it, but good luck with your baby food making, and please contact me if you have any questions or would like any words of wisdom. Thanks!